The number one killer in young adults today is suicide. This is getting younger and younger, like it's working its way towards grade school. Just within the active duty and veteran community alone, we've seen over 30,000 suicides since 9/11. All right, here we are with another book report. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going a little bit deeper. This is called The Awakened Brain by Dr. Lisa Miller. I stumbled across Dr. Miller on a Rich Roll podcast randomly, and I was intrigued. She's a scientist of clinical psychology, and this is all about the science of spirituality. And she uses real studies that she's done and many of other people have done, and she brings us all together to put clinical psychology and spirituality into a whole different light, a whole different perspective. To be honest, some of her anecdotal stories about synchronicities, especially with the sound effects, I was a little thrown off. I wasn't really picking everything up until she really got into the information and started biting into what has been discovered. She talks about the number one killer in young adults today is suicide. This is getting younger and younger, like it's working its way towards grade school. These generations coming up today are lonely. Just within the active duty and veteran community alone, we've seen over 30,000 suicides since 9/11. She talks about a meta-study that shows a 62% decreased relative risk when there's a spiritual awareness shared as a group. When you put studies together that show that somebody having spirituality is 80% less likely to become addicted to anything or have depression. So what is spirituality? She describes spirituality as a personal devotion, a sense of personal relationship with a higher power, something greater than ourselves, universe, God, whatever. But she's spent decades doing studies herself, combining with all kinds of other studies from other fields that she's brought together. As we know, even in other sciences, academia tends to be the last ones to pick up new ideas or to fall into learning new. It's more scientism instead of science itself, which is always growing, right? She's discovered this firsthand in the past, giving presentations of these new profound discoveries and seeing people that she admired and looked up to getting up and walking out of her presentations. Instead of conforming or, as she says, playing to the crowd, she persisted. She knew she had something big and she went forward with this, and I was blown away, and that's what really caught my attention. In the book, she breaks things down very well. She talks about how you can be spiritual without religion, and you can be religious without being spiritual. There's dogma or your connection to something bigger than yourself. She goes into details of trying to figure some of these things out, like why are women twice as likely to go into depression than men are, and discovers that because of a cognitive process called rumination. Rumination is the mental spinning or overthinking, and rumination reinforces depression. Depression reinforces rumination. So it's this just endless cycle of basically circling the drain into a depressive state, where it seems like the only way out is through some kind of medication. And that's basically what we're taught from the time we're children anymore. Some of the important information about the way medicine's used today is backed up in this book. Like, despite the fact that only half of the people being treated see a disappearance of their symptoms, more and more people are being medicated for mental illness. The sizable increase in medication isn't curbing or even slowing the surge of depression and anxiety that we're seeing. More than two-thirds of the people being put on antidepressants do not meet the criteria for a major depressive disorder. SSRIs are being used as a palliative for life. They may improve the symptoms. They don't always. They may improve the symptoms, but they don't treat the cause. You're treating the symptoms, not the person. And how many people taking things like SSRIs aren't taking something else to go along with that? she goes as far as to find out that we have a capacity for spirituality. We're 29% hereditary and 71% environmental. And the people that are more prone to depression are more profoundly enriched by spirituality. She shows the neurocorrelates for this. In her fMRI study, she shows exactly why. I'm not going to ruin one of the biggest parts of this book in explaining all of that. But between depression and spirituality, one literally replaces the other. As she says, what if depression is actually spiritual hunger? When you combine all the information from all these studies that have been put together, it looks like we're hardwired to awakening, to transform, expand, even through trauma. In the same hand, everything is perspective, which is brought up a few times in this book. As she says, spirituality is a choice we can make at every moment, a choice of how we perceive the world and ourselves. Like every day, somebody has a profound mystical experience, a spiritual breakthrough, or some earth-shattering psychedelic experience. The most common thing you hear from any one of these experiences is a conversation about oneness, of how we all come from the same place, how we're all connected. They all find themselves on common ground with humankind, nature, God, universe, whatever you call it. And there's a lot of different ways to find this connection with something bigger than ourselves, or this oneness, through whether it's prayer, meditation, plant medicines, or even a hike in nature, getting out of the city and being in nature for a while, camping. People have these experiences, especially on their own. Towards the end of the book, Dr. Miller gives us practical ways to access your awakened state, different ways to maybe find that connection to satiate that hunger. Like I talked about before, there's this growing loneliness throughout humankind, especially in Western culture today. You can see it the way that people drive, the way that people even interact in public. We're being divided by technology and many other ways. You see in a lot of different places around the world, in most places around the world where people aren't as privileged as we are in this Western culture, people aren't suffering from depression and anxiety the way that we are. There's a lot of powerful ways to move away from depression and anxiety without being engulfed in these permanent consumption of pharmaceuticals. Look, if you don't pick up this book, pick up a book. Download one on your phone, listen to it in your car, expand your knowledge, arm yourselves with knowledge. Like, I really like this book. I really enjoyed putting all this together. For any of you that are still watching, thank you so much. Let me know how you guys feel about it. If you liked it, let me know what you liked about it. If you hated it, if you think it sucked, let me know all about it, man. Tell me what I'm doing right and wrong. Thank you for tuning in. Hit like and subscribe. That helps us out a lot. But thanks again, guys.